I'm Marcia. Welcome back to my channel and happy 4th of July week if you're in the United States. In this video today, I'm going to go over some basic Python Code Wars questions that could come up in a technical interview. This video is specifically targeted for those in the 100 Devs program, and if you were put in a similar situation that I was in, which is I had one weekend to figure out Python because I booked a technical interview for a Monday and I was sitting on a Friday when I booked it. So this is what this video is for. Some ground rules before we get into solving some code wars. This video is for those that are just starting out in their journey, so totally new to Python. If you've got a little bit of experience, I kind of recommend skipping this video and coming back for another one. I plan in the very near future to be doing some videos on how to read some files, like Excel files using Python, and be able to basic manipulate them, but that's going to be for another video. This video is for beginners only. In this video, we're going to be going over what I consider the most 5 easiest problems that are in Code Wars when it comes to Python. This is exactly the same problems in my JavaScript video, and the reason I'm focusing on these 5 is because I think you need to understand these principles and how to do it in Python before you move on. Alright, let's start solving some Python Code Wars challenges.
Alright, this first one is very simple. I will also be linking every single one of these questions and answers into the comments. So right here, all we had to do was add the return and then it would work. This is just a simple debug one. And in this video, I just wanted to show you how to do some basic stuff like comment stuff out. So in Python, it is just one single pound sign or number sign to comment it out. Another way you can do it is obviously command / or control / depending on if you have a Mac or a PC. And right here, I'm just showing you that there's other ways of solving this as well. So in Python, it is print, not console log. I don't know if Codewars will take it. Yeah, I don't think it would. I think it still just wants return. But when you are in an IDE, just get used to using print instead of console log when you're trying to show something. Alright, you get to hear a little bit about my bias toward Python. Look at how much easier it is to solve this question in comparison to our JavaScript one. There is no curly braces syntax, so whenever I'm given a choice to do an interview in JavaScript or Python, I always pick Python because I know I can do it in a faster time. As usual, we can check out how other people are doing this, and I would look up what an int and a float is if you don't know what that is in Python. Alright, that was easy. Let's move on to question number 2. So this one, they just want the opposite number. And to get the opposite number of anything, you could just simply take that number and multiply it by -1, and pretty much you'll be set. So, yep, return. And also remember for Python, it is 4 spaces. That's a good rule of thumb if you can't get the indent right the first time. So I'm doing number times -1. Let's give it a second. Yep, of course that works. And the whole point of this question is I want you to get used to the way a Python function works. So what I mean by that is that you need to be used to typing out def instead of like function, especially if you're coming from like JavaScript. Oh, I accidentally added a 1 again. I made the same exact mistake with JavaScript, but okay. So the whole point of this is I want you to get used to just typing this out, getting the feel for it on your fingers, writing it out, and understanding that when you are asking for a function in Python that you have to just write the word def. That's just how it works. And you just have to get used to not seeing curly braces. I know that broke my brain a little bit when I first started doing this, but you just had to get used to it. I ended up loving it, like I said previously, and just get used to the syntax. I want you to type this out and retype it until, like I said, it's just like memory. You don't really have to think about it. All right, looks like we got that one. I'll let you check out the other results if you want to on your own, but I'm moving on to problem number 3. I think this problem is really important. I'm going to be introducing a thing called splicing. I think this is just something you have to commit to memory. I use splicing so much, but before we get to that, I'm going to show you the non-fancy way of solving this question. So we are reversing a string. So I'm going to use the prep method. So starting out, let's figure out what our parameters are going to be. The parameters are going to be a string. Looks like that's all they're going to give us. Our return is they want the same string, just they want it completely backward. And then in the example, we can just simply use the example that they're giving us. So I just like to copy and paste when it comes to this. If this was an interview, obviously I would ask my interviewer more questions about it. This is important because sometimes they like to trick you, so this is why I'm a big believer in prep method. And of course, our pseudocode time. Alright, so we're going to set x to an empty string, and what I'm going to do now is just copy and paste our pseudocode, just so that way you get into the habit of seeing this. Eventually you won't have to do this, but to start off, this is a good thing to do. So yeah, we're just going to have x, set it equal to something empty. I'm just going to use a single quote. You could use a double quote for this, but I don't care. Just pick a convention and stick with it. I'm doing single because that's just what I learned at my day job, so I'm sticking with it. All right, now we're going to do the for loop. I want to loop through that variable called string. So I'm going to do for I in string, and then we're going to indent again after this. We're going to do x equals I plus x, so that means we're taking every single element in that string, so like the W, and then we're adding it into that empty string. And then obviously we want to return x, and that is the non-fancy way of getting here. Now I'm going to show you the practical way that I use every day, and this is something you're just going to have to understand when it comes to learning Python, which is splicing. I'm going to do something a little bit different here with this problem because of that. So same thing again, def solution string, and I'm going to use some brackets. I call them the hard bracket, and it's going to be colon colon -1. And then let's see how that does for us. That gets us the exact same results. And this is the practical way, and this is something that you're going to have to commit to memory, but I'm going to go in a little bit deeper on this so that way you get it, because at first when I was first learning, this kind of tripped me up a little bit, but I'm going to get into it, and I also want you to get into the habit of using VS Code for solving your Codewars when it comes to Python. And the reason why I recommend it, and I didn't recommend it with like JavaScript, the cool thing about JavaScript is that you can use the internet browser, but Python doesn't work that way. You have to pretty much give it its own environment, and that's not something that comes with a browser, so that's why I'm showing you this other way of doing things. But as you can see, other people are doing the same exact thing, and let's get into it. So before you start, you should go to the official Python website if you haven't already and get Python downloaded into your machine, whether you have a Microsoft, Linux, or a Mac. This is the best place to go, so I would start here. I clicked on Mac because that is what I have, but read through that. The other thing too is to go to Anaconda, especially if you've got an interest for AI, but I won't go into that too much in this video. It's good to have this, and it's just easier to manage your Python environments with that. And then have VS Code open, and I want you to download Python as an extension. This is the one. I gotta update mine, but yeah, the one with like millions of downloads from Microsoft is the one that you want. And you also need to set your Python environment. I got it under Marsha default, and I have a Conda environment for that. I'm using Python 3.8. You don't have to, you can use the more newer ones, but I like to stay with that version because I'm comfortable with it. I know like all the ins and outs of it, but this is how you find out what you have. You want to use conda env list. Oh, I messed up. I wrote down conda env config. I guess another project is spelling in, but you want to use the command conda env list. This will show you everything that you have for conda environments. You got your base, and then Marsha default is the one that I have. If you want to create a conda environment, you need to use the command conda create -- name and whatever the name is. I'm going to use Marsha test in this situation, and you hit enter. You let it do its thing. And by the way, I'm doing this all in the terminal. If you're in PC, you would use the command prompt, say yes to everything, give it a second, and then do a conda env list again, and you will see the new one. That's Marsha test, and I'm pretty sure I'm using a way newer version than 3.8 Python. And to change it, you go down to the very right-hand corner and switch it to Marsha test if you want to switch, but I'm going to stick to Marsha default because, like I said, that's the one that I'm the most comfortable with. So you need to set this up if you want to see anything. Like if you run like Python code and you want to be able to see stuff, this is the way you do it. Now I'm doing conda deactivate just to shut off my conda environments before I exit out. If you're new to splicing in Python, I highly recommend that you just type it into Google, Python splicing. I think Web3 Schools here does a wonderful job of explaining it, and if that doesn't work for you, go back, find another article. Looks like there's like a bajillion of them, and just keep reading up on it until you start to understand it a little bit better. It's okay if it doesn't all click at first. We're also going to go in depth into what splicing actually is and the syntax of it in VS Code. So all I did was copy the question, and I passed an argument. The solution I think I put in is hello, and the syntax is start, stop, and step. So just remember that you are starting in that first one, stopping in that second, colon, and then the last one is a step. So when we do a step of -1, it's pretty much just taking that whole string or whatever we're passing through it and flipping it. And I'm going to select it all and run it in the terminal by doing Shift Enter, but you might have to click Terminal Run Selection. And as you can see in our terminal, that it gives us hello, but it's completely backward. I'm also going to show you if you're going to use print, this is how you do it. It didn't work in Codewars, but it'll work here. Yep, as you can see, hello is completely backward, and that's just based on the fact that we put -1 as the step. Now, what if we didn't have -1? If we just had 1, it would be hello, like normal, the way you read it. Now, the fun part, if we do a -2, what ends up happening? So what this is doing is we are taking every second element from the end. So that's the O, because that's the ending one. Then we're taking an L. And then after that, there's H, and then we run out of word. Now, what if I use a start and a step at 1? So I'm going to have my start at 1, step at 1. We get everything except for H, and the reason why is because Python is 0 index, so hello, H, is in the 0 spot, but E is in the 1 spot, so that's why we're getting ELLO, and since we're going to be stepping by 1, the order's exactly the same. This is where I want you to have fun. Just try different things. Put in different starts. Put in different stops. Put in different steps. And don't even just stick with the word hello. Like, try a more fun solution or pass in a cooler argument because, like I said, I use this like at least once a week. I'm always trying to get rid of something, I feel like, or yeah, I just think you need to know this, so like put in something fun like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I don't know if I spelt it right, but This is something I learned when I was a kid in elementary school. And just try different things. Try putting in a stop at like index number 2 and see what happens. And I think by doing this, you're going to learn a lot more and you're going to have more fun with it. So give it a try. Definitely recommend when it comes to Python and you're doing these Codewars challenges to be putting this into VS Code and running it. And obviously you want to get your green squares on GitHub, so when you're done, save this solution and go on ahead and push it. You earned your green square, and yeah, enjoy yourself. All right, on to the next one. We're going to return pretty much, they want to make stuff negative. So any kind of number, they would like to see it negative, obviously, as long as it's not 0. And I think they tell you that. Yep, they tell you in the notes right over here that the number can be negative already. So in that case, no changes required. Obviously, 0 can't be negative because that doesn't make any mathematical sense. So let's set this up. We're going to do it the non-fancy way at first. And yeah, so we're going to use the prep method, like I said earlier. Looks like there's going to be numbers running through as a parameter of any kind. We want to return negative as long as it's not 0 or already negative. And then the example, which I just ended up copying and pasting, is that if we get a -5, we should return a -5. For pseudocoding, we're going to check if the number is less than or equal to 0. If it is less than or equal to 0, we're going to return itself. And else, so if it doesn't meet this condition, we're going to return the number times -1. All right, we're going to go on ahead and just code it out. So if number is less than or equal to 0, we're going to return itself, the number, the variable. Else, we're going to return the number times -1, and we're going to give this a try. Make sure that it's correct, and yep, it is. Sweet, and now we're going to do a ternary in Python. Now, once again, this is my bias coming out on why I love this language so much, but I think this ternary makes way more sense and is a lot easier than doing this in JavaScript, and another way to get to the answer faster. So I think it's really fun. So we're going to return number if, and then what was our condition? Number is less than or equal to 0. And then we don't have to do that weird question mark thing. We can just write else, if I can spell correctly. And what are we going to do when it doesn't meet that? We're just going to return number times -1, and we can just delete all of this. So I just think it's a lot easier. I like to say that when it comes to Python, you can code and talk at the same time, where I feel like I can't do that as well when I'm using another language. All right, I'm going to speed through this part where we go through the solutions. I think you need to do that yourself, and let's move on to the next one. So this is the classic even or odd question. I feel like this question or a variation of this question gets asked a lot, so this is one where I highly recommend that you copy this, paste it into VS Code, and just get used to it. Try different things, like instead of just a number, like pass an array through it. I felt like I got asked that a lot, like they'd give me an array of numbers. But let's do our prep method. So in this case, it's going to be a number. They want us to return either even or odd. And then the example, I think I just ended up copying and pasting. So -1, they want us to say odd. Now for the pseudocode portion of this, we're going to check if this is even. And how we're going to check if it's even is that we're going to use modulo 2. So and then equals 0 or equals 0, because same rules apply here in Python, that one equal sign is assignment versus comparison, and we want to do comparison. So if it is, then we want to return even, else we want to return odd. So let's just start typing this out. So if number, the number that's getting passed through, mod 2, So modulo, which is the percent sign, 2 equals equals 0, then we know that it's even. So in that case, we want to return even. Else, return odd. We'll give it a try. All right, it works. Now let's practice our ternary. So return even, and what's our condition? If number mod 2 equals 0, and this is why I find Python so easy. Yeah, you just gotta grab else odd, and that is it, and get rid of the colon. It's just so simple. All right, there we have it.
If you're going through this video and you find, oh, these questions are a little bit tricky, or I'm not quite understanding how to do the pseudocode part of it, or for example, I'm not really understanding what splicing is in Python, I highly recommend that you just put this video on repeat and just kind of at first just blindly memorize and handwrite it. That's at least something that helped out for me. The reason why I recommend handwriting, even though it's a very archaic method, especially for coding, is because when you're in a technical interview, most of the time they're not going to give you an IDE. So like you're not going to have a computer, and they're usually just going to hand you a marker, tell you to walk up to a whiteboard and start solving the problem. So that's why I'm so adamant about getting it down in writing and having it completely committed to memory. So that's why I'm recommending that. You'll also notice in all my videos I keep using the prep method. This is something from the 100 Devs Community Taught Bootcamp, and that stands for parameters, returns, examples, and pseudocode. You just have to get into a very good habit of solving your code wars that way. So that way when you do show up to the technical interview, you sound polished, you sound professional. And the prep method has saved me so many times in interviews where I am just nervous, and by just following that layout, it's really hard to mess up. So that's why I'm very adamant about solving your code wars that way, getting it committed to memory, and highly recommend that you just do these problems on repeat. If you're learning any type of language, I don't care if it's JavaScript, Python, Rust, or whatever have you, I feel like if you can understand these 5 principles, it's a good start, and then after that you can start to challenge yourself to do more complex things. So some other tips and other questions. A common question that I get is, well, what if it's not clicking? I still don't understand stuff. I highly recommend that you just have fun with it. In the splicing problem for this Python one, I break open VS Code. I think you need to come at it with that type of mindset. Just open up an IDE, have fun with it, try different things, like pass different words in, have fun, and try different things out. And I think by enjoying it, you tend to learn a lot. And if you still don't quite get it, always look for documentation. There's Google for a reason. Google is your friend. And I think this is really fun, and a cool thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they'll take parts of that documentation and just throw it into ChatGPT, and they'll ask ChatGPT, hey, explain Python splicing in a fun way to me. For fun, I did it, and I said, explain it to me like you were Kanye, and I came up with like some really hilarious feedback, but it did help. I think it's really important that you get into the habit of just saying these problems out loud. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but by doing that, you're going to be way more comfortable when you're in a technical interview because you've done it so many times. I'm trying to think of any other questions that I commonly get. I get a lot of, well, I'm just not that good at pseudocode, and my answer to that is that it just takes practice. You're just going to have to do this over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. It took me weeks to finally just like see the problem and like come up with an answer very quickly, and that's because it just took practice. For me, I had to write them out at first, and by writing it out by hand, I started to finally like see the patterns. But I also say don't overtrain Codewars, and what I mean by that is that like don't try to advance so quickly. Like stick with these five that we're going over, and then until you get to the point where you feel comfortable, like then move on to the next one. So that's my only bit of advice when it comes to that. And yeah, I think that's the takeaway message, that this takes time. Give yourself a little bit to adjust to it. It's going to be new, and at first you're going to suck at it, which is fine, but just keep trying and keep going again, and sooner or later you won't even have to really think. It'll just happen, and I think that's pretty cool. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something. Best of luck on your technical interviews. I know you'll do great. Subscribe and follow along to learn more, and please comment below with any other suggestions or examples of questions where you would like them to be worked through. I plan to be doing more videos like this in the future, and I hope this helps.